There's no recreational space or play area for kids. I mean, there's no yards whatsoever. As I said, some of the properties are even 3 feet off the property line. So to have homes of this size, 2 and 3 bedrooms, whatever they were, which will have children, and then to provide no place for those children to play. So they're either going to be running in the neighbors' backyards, they're playing on James Farm Road, which is extremely hazardous. So there's been no thought given out to how do you protect the children. And then, again, Mr. Kubik showed the traffic on that road. And it is through his videos, and it shows, even without this, a dangerous road. And to open it up to a place where kids are having to go play in that street makes very dangerous conditions. So for all those reasons, I can't support a development this dense and far-reaching in a neighborhood like this.
Anybody else have anything, Mr. Salavi?
No. Found mine, finally. I found something else I was looking for. Again, just we were talking about the speed on James Farm Road. I just want to put some actual numbers behind it, if that would be possible. That in the STV analysis of this that we were provided with, posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour. We all know that that's not likely that that's a very consistently followed speed. The average speed listed was 36.8. That was done on a study provided by the Stratford Police Department Traffic Division. And it says that, based on that, a sight distance of 280 feet would be required, and if it was 25 miles an hour, when you increase the speed up to 36.8, you'd be looking at now 410, which by no means are we anywhere near that. Looks like it was more like we were at 120 feet. And I think that dovetails with what said, is that there is no place with the size of these houses. They are likely to attract families, and there is no place. You cannot. It is just way too dense for anybody to be to have any area to use for recreational purposes. Even to the point when this property, when the first time it came before us, it was a sort of unusual stunt. They actually tried to say that, well, the golf course, the adjoining golf course, was the recreational area, and we were like, you got to be kidding us. That there was no access to it. That's private property. You can't use it. So, that's another thing going back into the history of this particular land. And just my final thought on this, the intent of the legislation to provide affordable housing, is to make sure that everybody has the ability to live in places that are desirable and are nice neighborhoods, which is something that I think Stratford strives to make sure we have that. By forcing people that would be able to not afford to live elsewhere into these very dense, very, very tight surroundings there, we're actually doing them a disservice when you think about it. It's like, is this a place where just because you're in a geographical area that is viewed as desirable, but under these conditions, where it's this tight, where it's this dense, where there's a matter of only a few feet between houses on there, I think that's really doing a disservice right there. And, for all these reasons, I see that this site plan, in connection with the regulation and with the zone change, should be rejected. And just regarding the site plan, since we're talking about that, I've made light, and if any of the staff wish to comment on the situation with the wetlands, just so that the record is clear, should this be reviewed, I invite anybody's thoughts on that, because that was a very big missing piece, at least to me, when this was presented to us last month. Thank you.
Sure. Well, when you have an application that has potential impact on wetlands, traditionally the procedure follows as you can submit an application to the Zoning Commission and the wetlands concurrently, but the Zoning Commission cannot vote until they have the official feedback from the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission. I think ideally, there are other concerns from the commission other than the wetlands in this scenario here, but I think the wetlands is an important one. And I think ideally, we would have preferred to have this application go concurrently with the inland wetlands, so that as we sit here tonight and you all are getting ready to vote, you would be armed with the information from the experts on the Wetlands Commission. Timing does not allow for us to pause this application, there are requirements that the commission has to follow in order to take action and vote on this application. Considering that the text amendment was denied, the zone change was denied, I would recommend that the zoning commission, as a reason for denial for the site plan, assuming that that's the direction that you all are going to go, that you state that you believe that it should require at least an application or a conversation with the conservation administrator to make that determination, since that's their field of expertise.
I would associate myself with those remarks that we should have that information in front of us, and should this applicant reapply, or should the owners of the property ever come back before us with any other desired use on that particular parcel, that wetlands comments and review be part of what it is, because it is a critical piece to this, and will help this commission to fulfill its duty to protect the environment of our town.
Mr. Henrik?
So when regarding the wetlands and that type of an application, when Mr. Bellis came, he stated that he believed that there were not wetlands on the property, and wetlands were an issue. And although he's I'm sure an astounding attorney, I don't know his expertise in that area. He used the information that he had, and so he perhaps only had a limited resource. The opposition brought in experts in that area where they did the research. They found the wetlands. They located the wetlands. They explained to us the impact that this development would have on those wetlands. Some of them they discovered in their research, and some of them they found as a matter of course, that were already part of the public record. So not only did he not take that step, but we were limited to our ability, and given the opportunity to believe an attorney or experts in their field, just as far as me, I have to take it, and as Mr. Slahavy said, be concerned about those wetlands based on the testimony of experts in the field who were brought in by the opposition. And that is part of the reasoning for my inability to approve this, is we do have those questions and they weren't answered. The applicant did have the opportunity, he chose not to. But yes, in the future, hopefully any applicants will follow that process. But I think he didn't do that, and that is maybe to his detriment.
Okay, any other comments? Just for the record, I would just like to note that Mr. Vacola, you did see the tape on the second meeting?
Yes, I did my homework today and watched the 3 parts of it, totally.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion by, what? Get a life. We have a motion by Mr. Hendrick, seconded by Miss Manis, not Mr. or Miss. All those in favor say aye. What? Huh? Opposed say no. No. Fails 0-5. I got that one right.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Henrik.
Motion to approve the minutes February 13, 2019 and February 27, 2019 meetings.
We have a motion by Mr. Henrik to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Second. By Mr. Solhavy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Zoning enforcement, nothing. Accessory apartments, sediment, we already covered. Or do we have to vote on one?
Sediment control, do we need to vote on?
To deny it, or
no, to deny, yeah. Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the sediment and control application for 170 Ornoak Lane and 1180 James Farm Road.
I have a motion by Mr. Solhavy. Do I have a second by Ms. Manis? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Or, you want to discuss it? You already killed it.
Should we include discussion in our deliberations or pre-vote on the sediment and erosion control?
It never hurts to include discussion. You know, it just makes a record of the decision that you're making. I mean, in general, any of these applications, you're weighing the public interest. You're saying that the public interest clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing, you know, in any of these. So that's what you're, you know, that's what the determination that you're making. So the support for that position is what you need to put on the record.
Care to?
I was to say, one of our primary concerns in the whole application was the water flow and the ability of the proposal to you know, to handle the stormwater, and considering how much of the property would now be paved over and mature trees removed. I don't think there's any way that we could, with what we had and all of our concerns regarding the environmental protection, that there's any way that we could approve any plan that would not be able to address our concerns regarding the water flow and the erosion on that. And even to the point where they're removing walls, which presumably are going to be controlling some of the water flow from the upland areas down to the lower land areas.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor say aye. Opposed? No. Fails 5-0. Planning projects, other, okay, we have 96-140 West Beach Drive, an 18th month approval extension request. Mr. Habansky?
So we received a request for an 18-month approval extension to reconstruct a formal seasonal residence to a year-round residence. This was approved on March 22nd, 2017. The current expiration date is March 22nd, 2019. The applicant had their request in well before that date, so they're good in terms of that. There's some additional information that was submitted by Attorney Barry Knott, who I believe represents someone who was in opposition to this application when it was approved in 2017. He had asked that we include that information for your review as you consider this extension. As you probably know, I have the ability, the Zoning Commission amended the regulations to allow me to grant these extensions, but given the opposition that we had on this application in the past, I thought it was an appropriate time to let the Zoning Commission make that determination. I don't have any concerns with the extension being approved. I know that there was a patio that has been built by one of the adjacent units at this condo complex that is in the place where the footprint of this building was approved. In my opinion, that's between the association that allowed them to do that and whoever built that patio. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Mr. Henrik?
So the extension at this point is in past cases more of a formality. It's something we typically will extend. I understand there is opposition. I know the area, and it's a funky kind of neighborhood where people are very possessive of their space. but it was an approved application, and we're only extending it, so I don't see an issue with it. Was there a motion originally made? No. 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 I'll make a motion to approve the extension.
Motion by Mr. Hendrick, second by Ms. Manis. Under discussion, Mr. Solhavy?
So let me see if I get this straight. So has the association weighed in on this? Or are we awaiting information from them? I'm just
I
a
don't
little
know if the
confused about the
association-
procedural history of this.
I don't know if the association has weighed in. I think there's something in the bylaws of the association that allows folks to be able to construct a patio with certain square footage along the side. However, that is conflicting with what they also, I think, when I think Mr. Gorlo submitted his application, he needed the approval of the association for that, the construction of that year-round home. So it's, they almost told people, two separate entities, that they're allowed to do something on this site. I don't think that it impacts the zoning commission approval in any way.
I got a question, and I'm not sure where to go with the question, maybe to our attorney. I sat on that BZA board that approved that. Shortly after, I believe, that property was, the property next door was sold to whoever owns it now. And at that point there, they were told that they could put a patio in. We do not govern patios underneath the zoning regulations. But that interferes now with the space that Mr. Gorlo wants to build on. Does he have the right to just go over there and dig that up and continue with what, is there? Or is it a problem that he has now with the association, or we're
So I would say you have a legitimate approval that you've given for him to build the house, and you have jurisdiction over that. So that's the only thing that's before you. The fact that there's other facts out there that may interfere with that, that's private, especially, and the question I was gonna ask you is, do you have the right to approve would he have had to come here for a patio approval? And you've just really answered that question,
Right.
which is he doesn't. So I would say you have jurisdiction over the house. He's asking for an extension of a permit that you've already given him. You should not get distracted by the fact that somebody else is doing something else.
So if we continue forward and grant the extension, any problems in the future he would have with the association or with a neighbor
With his
to
neighbor.
neighbor?
Exactly.
Yeah, it becomes a civil matter at that point, right? Okay, Mike. Motion by Mr. Hendrick to extend. I have a second by Mr. Solhay. Nope. Ms. Manis. I keep getting them mixed up. I know. It's later in the evening. Sorry. Second by Ms. Manis. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. I need a motion to waive the rules to go into executive session with Mr. Kelly in regards to 608 Ferry Boulevard. I guess they met and talked and beat each other up.
And the purpose of this is for, I take it,
I'm guessing for litigation.
attorney-client negotiation,
litigation.
pending litigation? Very good. I'll make that motion. Okay.
We have to
So,
waive the rules to add it to the agenda.
okay, I move to waive the rules to add to the agenda.
Motion by Mr. Solhavy, second by Mr. Vacola. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then, Mr. Chairman, I move that since it's on the agenda, I move that the zoning commission go into executive session to include members of the commission, the town attorney's staff, for the purposes of pending litigation, and the planning and zoning administrator.
Is that enough, Kev? Okay, so moved.
Works for me.
Do we have a second for that? Second by Mr. Hendrick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I was already voted by Mr. Vacola. Take that second back. We shall return in minutes, we hope.
Okay, this stuff for you.
Motion by Mr. Solhavy, second by Ms. Manis, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, so moved.